Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Autogefühl, today with me, AJ and Michelle. This might look like Mars or Tatooine, but no. In fact, this is the Atacama Desert in South American Chile. What on earth am I doing here? Well, Audi told me that they have a new SUV tucked away, hidden in a secret valley somewhere in these mountains. I just had to find it. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the all-new Audi Q8. Well, excuse me because I have to shout a little bit because it's really windy out here in the desert. But let's take a look at the front of the Audi Q8. This is a bold new design for the Q8. They try to capture some of the Audi Quattro's essence with this large front honeycomb hexagonal grille. We'll see later on the side as well for the C-pillar. They try to capture some of the old retro design, but at the same time bring a lot of new elements to it. This large front mask can be had with a contrasting color, or in this case, with the color for the body. You will see here that there are so many different sensors. In fact, this car has over 39 assistance systems and 23 sensors. There are 5 cameras, 5 radar sensors, 1 laser scanner, and 12 ultrasound sensors. It's so complicated. This, for example, is the laser sensor, and this is an automatic pressure-induced washing system. This is the radar sensor, the front camera. So it's really complex. Going further down, we have different options for the trims as well, including an S-line package. But in the standard one, we have a strip of black running through the middle, kind of separating the lower part of the bumper with the mask. Headlights are also something that are important and new for the Q8. All models of the Q8 come as standard with LED lights, but you can also get the optional matrix LED lights, like the ones we have over here. The high beam is kind of hidden away in this blacked out section, so it makes the headlights look really slim, even though this as well as this are part of the headlights. So, what do you guys think of this new front design? Please excuse me if I sound a little bit out of breath. We are at pretty high altitude, as well as this incredible gusts of wind are not really helping. But anyway, these wheel arches in this case, as well as the S-Line package, are in body color, but you can get them with black cladding. I personally think that is better. It kind of makes the car look a little bit more slim, because here with the white color, it kind of increases the visual mass of the car. The wheels, by the way, start at 19 inches as standard. We have 21 inches over here, huge and very big, but in comparison with the car, I think it's really well proportioned. It looks pretty cool. You also get, with the upgraded systems, you get a 6-piston brake caliper for the front disc rotor. The Q8 is about 5 meters long, it's about 2 meters wide, and it weighs about 2,145 kilograms. That makes it about 66 millimeters shorter than the Q7, as well as a few millimeters wider than that. You have different options for suspension. As standard, you get coilovers with adaptive dampers, but I would suggest you get the air suspension. It makes it really smooth, and it can raise the ride height to give you a ground clearance of up to 254 millimeters. So that, coupled with the short overhangs, as well as the Audi Quattro all-wheel drive system, although there are not, it's not really meant for hardcore off-roading, it makes it a lot more capable. So air suspension is pretty good for that. Plus, it also helps in stabilization, which I will talk about later on. Really nice door line, one single design line which goes all the way back here. And towards the rear wheel arch, there's the haunch to give a muscular shoulder line. Now, this is where the Q8 distinguishes itself, and this is the coupe roofline. Truth be told, I personally don't really call this a coupe line. It is a sloping roofline, but to me it's not really a coupe. But at the same time, it's kind of a catch-22. If you try to make a real coupe design, you end up with something like the BMW X4 or the GLC coupe, which I personally don't think looks that elegant. It's just a personal taste. But at the same time, if you try to do something like this and call it a coupe, it's not really a coupe in my eyes. What do you guys think of this design? Let me know. Here at the back of the new Q8, I think the first thing you will notice are these really wide headlights, including this strip over the top. It kind of emphasizes the width of the car and kind of, again, harks back to the old and original Audi Quattro. The top of the roof, we also have a spoiler, and which is flanked by this glossy black outline. Here it's a little bit more prominent that you can see the sloping roofline. The downside of this is that there is no third row of seats like in the Q7, as well as there is a reduction in the boot space. We'll look at that in a minute, but one thing which I am a bit disappointed with is this. What is this? This is nothing. The real exhaust tips are somewhere back down here. This is just a cosmetic thing. And I don't know. We had a discussion with this with the designer last night. I guess people don't really mind. Do you mind? Put it down in the comments below. Automatic tailgate to raise the rear hatch. It goes up quite slow, interestingly. So with the seats up in this configuration, we have 605 liters of boot space. But if we fold the seats down, then it gets up to 1,775 liters of boot space. You can see down here that we have a spare wheel and the emergency kit. Really interesting are these this partition. I need two hands for this. Hold on. There we go. It's a bit tricky, but you can put them across the side or on one side, and if you want to fasten things away, it makes it a lot easier. As well as this little gate back there, you can put some groceries in the back and make sure things don't roll around. And let's see, because we have the air suspension, you have the switches here to raise and lower the suspension in the back axle, the rear axle. So with this, it becomes a lot easier to load heavy items. The lip is not that bad. You also have this scuff plate, which ensures that you don't damage the bodywork, nor do you damage your suitcases. And let's try to fold the seats down. So you have to come over here to fold the front seats down. Similarly on the other side. There we go. And with this, they click in place. You don't really have a completely flat loading bay, but 1,775 liters, I think that's more than enough for most people. And if you want to put the seat back up, use the same latch to release it. And then you can also slide the seat forward, like so, if you want to liberate more space in the back and you have somebody who can deal with a shorter amount of leg space. The Q8 comes with several different engine options. Similar to the rest of the VW MLB platform, there is the 3-liter V6 TDI diesel engine, which makes 286 horsepower or 231 horsepower, and the higher engine makes 600 Newton meters of torque and takes 6.3 seconds to go from 0 to 100. Then there is a 3-liter TFSI petrol engine like the one you see here with 340 horsepower. All of these engines are MHAV, which means they're mild hybrid electric vehicles. And the truth is, this is not really an electric vehicle in the true sense. There is no electric motor which directly drives the wheels, but I'll talk a little bit more about this in the later part of the review. All of these engines are mated to the Tiptronic 8-speed automatic torque converter box, and they all have the Audi Quattro 4-wheel drive system, which is a mechanical central differential system, which has a standard torque split of 40 to the front and 60 to the rear. There are 4 different seat options. The top of the range would be the S-Line, which has, in some markets, Alcantara seats, although that is not confirmed yet. There are also customized contour seats and standard seats. Unfortunately, at this moment in time, there are not many non-leather options. We're going to start off with the interior part, sitting inside the car because it's way too windy outside to record. So the first thing you realize when you sit in here, and the first thing that grabs your attention, are these three screens. So Audi is really doing away with buttons almost completely. You have a big 10.1-inch touchscreen with haptic feedback over here. Same 8.5-inch screen down here, and a 12.3 display for the virtual cockpit. This pretty much controls everything. So there are very little buttons, but I don't really mind this too much because this bottom screen is dedicated to your climate control, for example. So, and it's got a haptic feedback. So I'll show you right now. If you push the buttons, it gives you a little click, and then you can see that the screen is kind of going in, so you get a good feedback. So with that, I think that's kind of the best of both worlds. You don't have to have buttons. You can use this to customize with, whatever you want to see. If you want to have parking assist. By the way, this car has remote control parking, so you can park into a garage and park out of the garage using the laser scanner. It also can parallel park and perpendicular park itself. And we'll come to this in a bit. First, let's start over here. This is the virtual cockpit. You can change the view with these buttons on the steering wheel. So for example, if I have navigation and I press the view button, it expands and I can see the full screen navigation with just the small displays for the tachometer and the speedometer. You have different driving data. For example, today we were driving for over 250 kilometers and we were getting an average of about 11.5 liters. But this is not a realistic figure. Please keep in mind that this is not a standard driving condition. We were driving in really high altitudes and on some really off-road situations. So you will see much better numbers. My estimation for a realistic figure would be around 9.5 in a combined cycle, which is, I think, not that bad, at least. You can have different options for trims. In ours, we have this aluminum on the side and on this central console over here as well. It looks pretty nice. I would prefer the wood option because I think wood always lifts the interior, makes it a lot more beautiful to look at. This screen is flush with the center piano black panel, which is expansive. The air vents are also really horizontal, stretching from the side all the way to the passenger side. This also continues with the wraparound scheme of the dashboard that Audi has, where it just swoops along the sides for you. Apart from that, you have heads-up display, which gives you information on your navigation, your speed, the traffic sign assist, and things like that. This haptic feedback main screen gives you a lot of control over your media, your telephone. Of course, this has connectivity for your phone with Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. And navigation system is really high tech, works really well, really good and quick reactions to your when you push it. One thing I don't really like is this silly sky blue cloud layer on the top, this banner. Why can't they just have the whole screen, even if it's a 3D or rather a 2D view, like this head up north? You don't have that here. So why do you need to put it in this kind of a 3D view? I don't know. It's just a personal taste that I don't really, not too fond of. And this car also has connectivity. So it is, it's part of this new system where it will talk to a lot of other cars, not just Audi cars, but also BMW and Mercedes cars. They have a tie-up. And these cars will communicate with each other regarding traffic conditions, road conditions, if there's ice, if there's potholes, if there's roadblocks. And in terms of parking spaces as well, they can even measure the parking spaces in the city streets. So when you're just driving down the city, your car is continuously monitoring the surroundings. And if it sees that there's an empty parking spot, which you don't really use, it will send that message back to the server. And somebody else who is driving and needs to park, they will get the information that there's a parking spot available in the city. Incredible stuff. And down here we have the 8-speed Tiptronic gear lever. It's really nice. It's really chunky. Of course, it's just a fully digital system, so you can rest your hand on this. There is no connection to anything. And this is a good way to operate your climate control here. It's really nice. You have seat heaters, seat ventilation. Of course, the seat can be adjusted completely for height and base. And the seating position is also not that bad. The windshield is quite large, windows are quite large. The coupe roofline, quote unquote coupe roofline, is also not much of a hindrance for the rear visibility. I have a good view out, but there's a lot of cameras, like I said. And if you also get the optional 360-degree camera, you can really use that system to, it kind of renders the entire car in a 3D space. We don't have that equipped on this model, but you can watch Thomas's review when he went to see the car in there we go. No, see, we don't have it in this one. When he went to see the world premiere of the car, that one had it. So yeah, I think that system is really incredible, really useful, and it's also very helpful when you're driving in tight city spaces, because this car has really big wheels. You don't want to scrape that. More cubby holes. This is the key, by the way. 12-volt power socket and inductive phone charger. This is a very deceptively shallow bin over here, this cubby hole. There really isn't much space. I was expecting it to be a little bit bigger. Sorry, Michelle, I knocked your camera. But on the whole, it's wide and it's comfortable. You also have a glove box and some place to put your water bottles. So overall, fairly practical. I would have liked to have more space in this bin. It's quite huge. And, you know, I tried for quite some time to see if I could open this yesterday, and I couldn't. So that way, I think it loses 1 or 2 points. I just wanted to take a quick minute to show you guys the really nice frameless windows. And there's also double pane, so it's very acoustically damped inside. In fact, when we were driving, the car is incredibly hushed on the inside. Everywhere there's so much of extra sound deadening and acoustic insulation. It's very comfortable, especially with the air suspension isolating, and it's a very comfortable car that way. Well, the back seat is enormous. I mean, take a look at this. This seat is set to my driving position. I'm 5'8" or 1.7 meters. I have so much of leg room. I can probably fit somebody else inside here. I can slide my feet under the front seat as well. I have an air conditioning vent on the side, another console down here with my own climate zone. The seats are also fairly comfortable. If this is too much space for me, which it really is, I don't need this much, I can push the seat up forward, liberating more space in the back in case I want to carry something bigger, and I still have plenty of leg room. The middle seat is also not that bad. It is a bit firm because it's not that cushioned, I guess. The back is also quite firm because of the armrest, but in terms of leg space, because of these really wide footwells, I have enough space to keep my feet. The transmission tunnel is also not that intrusive, and there's these nice indentations, which, for me at least, are perfect fit for my feet. Apart from that, some places to keep your magazines. Isofix point. By the way, this car also comes equipped with the optional Bang & Olufsen 23-speaker 3D sound system, which sounds incredible.
Even with my music?
Even with Michelle's questionable taste in music that he was playing today.
Hey.
And a really nice central armrest with a slightly over-engineered cup holder. Look at this. But I think it looks pretty cool. And on the whole, it's pretty useful. Of course, you can also collapse this individually if you want a ski hatch. So, we're finally driving the all-new Audi Q8. And wow, just take a look at this incredible landscape. So if I get a bit, starstruck every now and then and I'm at a loss for words, you know that it's because of this incredible landscape. And even though this is a desert and it's a formidable terrain, we're going to start off the driving review on the road. Because let's be honest, although this car is fairly capable off-road, and we will test that out later, it's going to spend a majority of its life on the road. So how does it fare? Well, first of all, I think this car is packed with an incredible amount of options and systems. perhaps a bit too much. It's going to take some time for anybody who owns this car to get to grips with all the different things. But first of all, let's go into the vehicle and let's go into the Audi Drive Select. So here we have a bunch of different options. We have off-road, all-road, efficiency, comfort, automatic, and dynamic. Right now it's in automatic, and I can already tell you, like for example, we're going downhill, so the car is coasting. All of the engines, like I said, have the mild hybrid electric system, which means that there is no electric motor, so the car does not run on electric power alone. It's not possible, but the electric system works in conjunction with the serpentine belts, and that way, for example, in coasting like right now, or in a start-stop situation, and if you're braking, it harnesses the energy back, like the kinetic energy restoration system, and it helps in efficiency a little bit, and it makes it a lot more smoother to engage and disengage the drive. But on the whole, it's not like a hybrid car, it's a mild hybrid. So in automatic, I can feel it doing that, but I'm gonna put it in dynamic because we have some great roads here. Already, the air suspension becomes a little bit stiffer, the car lowers itself now, and even though this does not have that Audi active tilt compensation system, like for example we also saw in the Touareg recently when I drove that car, where there are a split anti-roll bar which will compress and extend the individual suspension legs to make the car keep the center of gravity in the same position in the middle. Here the air suspension is an adaptive active system, so when you're going around a corner, the outside wheels become stiffer, the suspension becomes stiffer, and it just balances the car automatically that way. I mean, this has so many systems, 39 assistance systems and 23 sensors. It's crazy. This car is smarter than me. Really, it is. Probably smarter than you as well, Michelle. But yeah. Or maybe not. You're smarter than me. That's easy. But it takes things into account, like the distance with the car in the front, and it also has navigation, so it takes in the information from the navigation and the GPS, and it pre-calculates if you're going around a corner, and it adapts itself before you get there. So it's a proactive system rather than a reactive system. But I want to overtake this van, so I'm going to put it in dynamic mode. I do that, or actually I can't do that right now. Wait till we get across. But in the meantime, I can also tell you about the steering. It's pretty good. It's not that nice. It doesn't give me that much feedback. It's fairly numb, unfortunately, even in the dynamic mode. The weight increases as the speed increases. I've noticed that. So even in dynamic mode, if you're going at a lower speed, it's still really light. But just having weight isn't enough for me. I really want to see, or I want to feel what the cars are doing, what the wheels are doing. Okay, I'm going to overtake this van. So I'm going to come up to it a little bit, and I'm going to shift down from 7 to 6. Put my foot down. There's a sudden surge of power as the car surges ahead. Overtake, and back to, let's see, M8 automatic. There we go. So these 340 horsepower V6 petrol engine, it's pretty good. I would say that it doesn't have that much power on the top end. It's really happy in the mid-range between around 2,000 RPM and about 4,000 RPM. So you have quite a lot of space to play around with and have fun with. And, you know, it's a good engine, but I think there will be a hybrid option later on, we've heard. And I think that would be the best, because I think then you have the best of both worlds. You have the petrol and you have the electric drive together. I think that would really work. Apart from that, in terms of dynamics, steering is pretty good. The steering wheel itself has a good grip. It's fairly large. So it kind of, you know, you don't forget that you're driving a big car because you have a big wheel. The suspension, like I said, is pretty tight. But not only that, there is also the four-wheel steering. So together, these two systems give a very composed chassis performance. Like up ahead, we're coming up to a right-hand bend, so we'll test that out. At higher speeds, this four-wheel steering system turns the back wheels in the same direction by a few degrees, about up to 5 degrees. So it kind of strafes the car a little bit, And at low speeds, it turns in the opposite direction. So it reduces the turning circle by about 1 meter. Yeah, there is quite a bit of roll, unfortunately. Like you can see that I'm tilting my head. But it's really composed. It's really sure-footed that way. Apart from that, unfortunately, we don't really have the standard American or European driving circumstances here, but there are a whole host of really intelligent cruise assist functions. For example, you have the adaptive cruise control, which is, like any other adaptive cruise control, will measure the distance to the car in front, you set the speed, and then it maintains that speed. But with the cruise assist, it goes 2 steps, 3 steps further, because it not only looks into that, around this corner, it does roll, but you never feel that the car is getting upset. It's still really composed. The steering becomes really heavy around corners. It seems a bit artificial, actually. But anyway, the cruise assist system also looks at the traffic signs. It has a camera. There are 5 cameras in this car. So it looks at the traffic signs and it checks the speed limit, and it will adapt accordingly. If you're coming up to a corner, it knows that in the navigation, so it will slow down the car even though you've set the speed to 130. If you're going around a corner, it will slow it down accordingly. If you're coming up to a roundabout as well, it will slow down. It looks at traffic conditions. This is a intelligently connected car with the platform that Audi shares with BMW and Mercedes. So this hive mind of all of these cars, with all the information that they're gathering together, are shared. So in terms of road conditions, for example, maybe a BMW driver is in a road where there's a lot of ice, then that BMW communicates that hey, in this location there's ice, is a hazard, be careful. And all of these cars will learn about that, and they will adapt accordingly. They will change the navigation if required. Also, it goes to the level that it will also give you parking spots, street parking spots, open parking spots, because there are 5 different cameras looking in all directions in these cars. When you're driving through a city, if the car notices some empty spaces for parking, it will record that and send that to this central server. And the other cars, if any other car in the system, if it comes up to there and the guys, you're looking for a place to park, it will pop up and say, hey, there's a city parking spot available here. So it's incredible. It really is, the future. Unfortunately, all of these functionalities are not available right now with this car that I'm driving. It will come in a little bit later in the future. But there's also blind spot monitoring, active lane keeping assist, traffic jam assist, front traffic alert, night vision. There's a laser scanner. It also has cross traffic alert in the front and the back, emergency braking, 360-degree camera with a 3D rendered model of the car in real space in real time. It also has what it's called, I think, the Presense 360, which can even detect if you're going to scrape your rims on the curb and stop you before you do that. So, Michelle, I really do think this car is smarter than me and perhaps a better driver than me. But I'm also curious. Same accounts for you. Accounts for you. But what I'm really interested now to see is, does that translate to its off-road capability? Because let's keep in mind, this has independent multi-link front suspension as well as rear suspension. Even though there is a central differential, there is really no transfer case, there is no low range. It has good approach and departure angles, but there are no mechanically locking differentials. So it's an off-roader, but it's not a true gritty, all-terrain off-roader. It's more of like a rough roader. Or is it? Let's find out.
Okay, so we're going to take the Q8 now on an off-road track. I'm going to hold this microphone because I think it's much better quality in terms of audio. And Michelle, I will hand the microphone to you when I need it to use both hands. But first of all, I've put the car in all-road mode. So this is an off-road mode, but it has a lot of assistance systems engaged. So this air suspension is now at its maximum height, which gives me 254 millimeters of ground clearance. The 3-liter V6 petrol engine turbo petrol TFSI, has pretty good torque, like I was saying, in the lower part of the rev range. Wow, it's incredibly dusty. And yeah, so it's very easy to go, do some off-roading in slow speeds because you have a lot of that torque low down in the rev range. The steering wheel is also really lightweight, and this is a good way to demonstrate that. I can just use one hand to maneuver with this. By the way, before I forget, I did not mention the mileage in the previous driving segment because the truth is we are driving in some really special conditions, not normal conditions, and we are also at a really high altitude. In fact, we went up almost to 4,200 meters, which is really high, and of course you do not get much good mileage over there, nor do the engines perform that well. But right now it's saying 11.6. I saw numbers as low as 10, so I think a realistic figure, like I said, would be around 9. It is sliding a little bit on these loose surfaces, so you can see the cars in front as well. They're kind of strafing and crabbing because of the loose surfaces. But this quattro all-wheel drive system is channelizing the power and pushing it to the front axle and the rear axle, depending on which one has the most grip. The steering wheel, thanks to it being so light, I mean, this is so easy to maneuver like this. And the suspension, even though it's really stiff and to provide that ground clearance, it's not that bad. On the road, it was really comfortable in comfort mode. But here in the all-road mode, it's also really nice. Sound insulation, again, is really good. As you can see, we're going on some rocky surfaces as well. But I don't really hear any crashes or bangs or any kind of that rough road noise filtering into the cabin. One thing I did notice, which I didn't really like, is that, for example, in the Touareg, we had 2 sun visors, so you can pull one to the side, and you had a second one to pull down to the front. This one doesn't have that. It has only one, which, I mean, this is so much more expensive than the Touareg. I would have expected it to have that. But on the whole, I think it's pretty good. The transmission also holds a lower gear for a higher time in this all-road mode, so that it's not shifting up when you're in a tricky situation and when you're trying to climb. So that way as well, it's really nice. The visibility is not so bad because I'm also making sure I don't scrape these beautiful 21-inch wheels on a lot of these rocks that we see on the sides of this track. So it's not that bad. Front visibility, I think, is pretty good. Rear visibility is not the best, but overall, I think to do this kind of rough roading, just going on some gravel tracks out here in the desert, this is more than enough. If you really want to go on some more difficult off-road driving situations, then might not really be the best or the most well-suited, because there is first of all, the suspension is independent multi-link suspension, so that's not always the best for off-road driving. There's also no real mechanical locking differentials, and there is no transfer case with a lower range. So, all that being said, if you plan to buy an Audi Q8 and you're going to be driving it most of the time in the city and on the highway, it's perfect. If you need to go off-road and for whatever reason you come to this amazing landscape here in the Atacama Desert, well, here is the testament that this car can handle that as well. I mean, take a look at this. Let's summarize today's episode of the all-new Audi Q8. The prices we expect to start around 75,000 euros in Germany, but with all the different options, a well-spec'd Q8 is going to be well over 100,000 euros. But for that price, you get a lot of technology, such as night vision, parking, the adaptive cruise assist, as well as a lot of performance and dynamic enhancements like the air suspension, four-wheel steering, and of course the Audi Quattro four-wheel drive. The interior as well is really well built, really comfortable, very luxurious. The only touchscreen methodology that Audi Q8 has can be a bit questionable and might not be to everybody's taste, but I think it has been executed pretty well with the haptic feedback and also separating the different screens so that you don't have to fumble between the different options on only one screen. All in all, it's a good car, very luxurious, very soft on the road, and fairly capable off-road. But what do you guys think? Let me know and put it down in the comments below.